been talking about prayer, about asking God for things, and sometimes his answer is yes, and sometimes it's no. But in today's story, sometimes God's answer is just wait. And that is so hard to do because we want an answer, and most of the times it's yes, right? But sometimes we have to be patient. And in today's story, we're going to talk about this man right here. His name is George Mueller. Now, he was older in this photo. He was almost 90. But when he was younger, God put it on his heart to have a ministry for children. And not just any children, but children who didn't have parents to care for them. He started schools and orphanages that helped thousands of people. But he didn't have a lot of money. So he prayed daily, every day, for God to supply their next meal, for God to meet the needs of these schools and these orphanages. Well, back in 1844, which was quite some time ago, George Mueller laid down his pencil and he looked down at the list of names he had just written. The people on his list did not know Jesus. In fact, his heart felt so heavy because he knew that they had never trusted Christ for their salvation, for their forgiveness of sins. George Mueller got down on his knees and he said, "Father, I ask you to work in the hearts of these 5 people." He mentioned the name of each one of those 5 people on his list. George Mueller's prayer that day was just the beginning. He continued to pray every single day for those 5 people to trust Christ for their salvation. Whether he was sick that day, whether he was healthy, he still continued to pray for those 5 people that God had placed on his heart to pray about. Whether he was on land or at sea, he prayed for those 5 people on his list. No matter how busy George Mueller got with his work, and he was busy, he remembered to pray for those people every single day. Do you know that after 1.5 years, George Mueller learned that one of those people, just one, had trusted Christ as their Savior? He thanked the Lord joyfully. But he didn't stop praying for the other 4 people that were left on his list. 5 more years went by. Not 5 days, not 5 weeks, but 5 years went by. One day, George Mueller learned that a second person from his list had trusted Christ as their Savior. And then, 6 years later, the 3rd person trusted Jesus as their Savior. That's a long time, guys, but he never gave up. He never stopped praying. For the rest of his life, George Mueller continued to pray for the last 2 people on his list. For over 50 years, he mentioned their names every day to the Lord, asking for their salvation. Wow, that's long, long time to be patient. It was not until after George Mueller's death in 1898 that the Lord answered his prayer. After he died, the Lord answered his prayer. Do you know that both of those 2 people that were left on his list came to know Jesus Christ? They came to ask them into their hearts. Do you know that George Mueller didn't see the answers to 2 of those prayers? But he died believing that Jesus would answer those prayers. God was faithful. So if you have something or someone that's on your heart, I'm challenging you today. Can you think of 5 people that you know that don't have Jesus in their heart, that you could start praying for today, just like George Mueller? Don't give up. Don't forget them. Keep praying for them. Make a list. Put the list on a wall in your bedroom or on the mirror in the bathroom if it's okay with your mom or your dad. remind yourself to keep praying and don't stop praying. Watch for God to answer those prayers.